This video will help you understand some of the features of Style Intelligence reports and give you an introduction to the report toolbar. To find reports in the portal, go to the Report tab at the top, and then select the report that you want to open from the repository listing on the left side. For this video, we'll open up the Master Detail report just simply by clicking on it once. The report loads in the main panel, and you can see that this is a report of some sales information in different categories and in different states. So what we'll do is we'll look in sequence at the different buttons that are available in the report toolbar. And these buttons are provide a number of functions that allow you to navigate the report and to do other operations on the report, such as printing and emailing, etc. So let's begin with the paging buttons. These are the buttons on the left-hand side. You'll notice that this is a multi-page report. It says at the top page 1 of 5. So this is a 5-page report. We're looking right now at the first page, obviously. To move to successive pages, simply press the next button. So press it once, we go to page 2, press again, page 3. The last button and the first button are buttons that will quickly take you to the end of the report, page 5, or the beginning of the report, page 1, and you can jump to an arbitrary location in the report by entering a number such as 4, and hit enter, and it will take you to page 4. Those are the paging controls for the report. The next option, the next button, is the search feature, and this allows you to search for terms within this particular report. So let's press the search button, which opens up the Explorer panel on the left-hand side, and we can then enter a term that we wish to search for. For example, let's say that we want to search for NJ, the abbreviation for New Jersey. So I can type NJ, press the search button, and then I get my search results here, and it indicates that in fact it did find an instance of NJ. I can click on that instance, and the report will then automatically scroll or page to the location of that hit. So the occurrence of NJ that it found is on page 3 of the report. It found this portion of the display that gives me the data for the state of New Jersey. The next button on the toolbar is the PDF button. This button provides a quick way to export the report to PDF. Let's first close the Explorer panel on the left simply by pressing the red X. And you can then test out the PDF button. Simply press the button, and the report will be generated in PDF format. The exact behavior of the button may depend on your particular browser settings. In this browser, the report is generated as a PDF and opens in a separate tab within the browser. On other browsers, the report may automatically open in Acrobat Reader. Again, depending on browser settings. So this is a convenience button that allows you to quickly generate the report in PDF format, at which point, of course, you can then email the PDF or do any other operations that you want to do with that PDF. The next button is the Mail button. This allows you to mail a report to other users in one of any number of formats. Let's take a look at that. Press the Mail button, and that opens the Mail dialog box. You can enter a set of addresses in the Mail To field. So you enter a set of emails that should be the recipients of this report. And of course, you can set a CC, BCC, set the From address, and a subject for the email, and then specify the format. As I mentioned, there are many formats that you can send the report in, including Excel format, HTML, PowerPoint, etc. So select the format in which you want to send the report. You can choose to zip up the report. There's a bundled as zip option, And if you select that, you can also specify a password for the zip file. The contents of the email you can place in the message field at the bottom, and then press OK. And that will email the report to the recipients that you have specified. The next option is the Schedule button, which you'll find over here. The Schedule button allows you to schedule the report for automatic generation and emailing. So rather than manually emailing the report, as you would do with the email button that we looked at previously, you can schedule the report to be generated by the server automatically at some specified time and automatically emailed to some recipients that you specify at that time. So let's see what happens if we press the Schedule button. That opens the Schedule Report dialog box. And again, you can select a particular format in which you want the report to be generated. And again, you can specify a list of emails for the report to be sent to. And then you choose when you want this operation to occur. You can specify a daily schedule, meaning that either every day or on weekdays at the time that you specify, the report will be generated and emailed, or you can specify a weekly schedule, particular time, and a set of days during the week, or a monthly schedule and you specify the day of the month, or, for example, the first Sunday or Monday, etc. of the month. So you make the selection of when the report should be generated. I'll just keep it set to daily at 1:30 a.m., which is 1:30 at night every day. And when you're done, and I'll enter an email here again. Just a made-up email, press Finish. And now this report has been scheduled to be generated and delivered to that email address at 1:30 a.m. on every evening, every night. So now, what if I want to make a change to that scheduled operation? Well, what I do is I go to the Schedule tab, the main Schedule tab up at the top. And if you click on the main Schedule tab, now you'll see that here's this report, the master detail report, and it's been scheduled as we just specified. So this is the definition of that schedule operation that we just created. If we wish to modify this, simply click on the Edit button over on the right, and that will open up the full schedule editor. This dialog box looks different than the dialog box we used previously because the previous dialog box was sort of a wizard to quickly schedule a report, whereas this is the full scheduling tool. So nevertheless, we can make whatever changes that we need to make over here. So again, we can, if we need to change the schedule settings, we can change it to daily, to weekly, monthly, and there are a number of other settings here that we discuss in a different video. And we can make edits to the time and whether it's every day or weekdays, etc. If you go to the Action tab, right, then there are a number of other settings that you can make here. You'll note that the one operation that is currently selected here is Deliver to Emails. That's what we had set up when we originally pressed the Schedule button. Remember, we specified an email, right? And so there's that email that we specified, and the other information that this report will be sent as a PDF, whatever format we specified. And there are obviously other settings that we can make here as well, and we can go on to elaborate this schedule operation to include other operations such as printing and saving an archive copy, etc. Again, these other operations are discussed in a separate video on scheduling reports and dashboards. There's also an Options tab that we also discuss in that other video. Okay, so this is how you can make modifications to a schedule that you set up, and when you're done making your modifications, you can press Save and Close. If you need to delete that scheduled operation, in other words, if you no longer need this report to be generated and emailed every night, simply press the red X to delete it, which I will do in just a moment. If you need to kick off the scheduled task immediately, in other words, rather than waiting until 1:30 a.m., for this report to be generated and emailed, if you need to do it now, you can just press the Run Now button and this task will kick off immediately. Okay, well for now, I don't really need this task anymore, so I'm going to press the red X to delete the task, and it prompts me just to make sure that I want to delete that. Press OK, and now that schedule task has been deleted. So let's return to the Report tab and return to the Master Detail Report. The next button in the toolbar is the Server Print button. And this will basically print if you press that button, it'll open the print dialog box. And from the printer list, you can select one of the printers that an administrator has defined as a server printer. In my installation here, there are no printers defined. But if you do this on one of the reports on your own system, what you should see is a list of printers that the server can print to. And you can make some choices as to the page range that you'll see, that you'll send to the printer. That's the server print feature. Now, depending on how your administrator has set up the system, you may see two other print buttons there. You may see also a standard print button. The tooltip will say simply print. And basically what that does is it allows you to print the report to a local printer, not a server printer, but rather a local printer, a printer that your own computer has access to. And it does that basically by generating a PDF in the background that you can then send to the printer. So that is the print button, which you may or may not see depending on whether the administrator enables it. And there is also a default print button, which you may or may not see. In this case, we don't see it. The default print button simply sends the report to the printer that you've defined as your default printer. And you can do that from the Preferences dialog box. The Preferences dialog box is accessed from the Preferences link at the top right corner of the portal. If you press the Preferences link, then you'll see the Preferences dialog box. And one of the options there is the default printer. So you can select a default printer from this list, and then if you have a default print button in the toolbar, when you press that button, the report will be sent to that default printer. So again, there may be up to 3 different print buttons in the toolbar. We only see one here, the server print, which prints to a server printer, but you may also see a standard print button, which allows you to print to a local printer, and a default print button, which allows you to print to whatever printer you've selected as your default. The next button is the Report Explorer button. And to illustrate how this button works, let's choose a different report. This report is not that amenable to that particular tool. So let's choose another standard report that's installed with our default installation, the Inventory Detail Report. This is a one-page report. You'll note that there are no paging options. So this is it. This is the entire report. It's basically just a table. And let's explore what this Report Explorer tool does. So click on that button, and it opens in the left panel this Explorer tool. And basically what the Report Explorer tool does is it allows you to make basic elementary modifications to various elements of a report, principally tables. So you can make changes to a table like this, and this is intended as an easy-to-use tool. It's not the most sophisticated tool. We'll see later on when we get to the ad hoc editing section that there are more sophisticated ways to modify reports, but this is intended to be quick and simple. So the way you use this is you click on, in the top panel here, it will list the elements that the tool can operate on. In this case, there's only one element listed. It's this table, whose name is Table 5. So you click on the element that you want to modify, and then in the bottom panel, there are a few different operations that you can do. They're represented by the 3 buttons. There's a Sort button, is the leftmost button. There's a Column Selection button, the middle button, and there's a Filtering button, which is the rightmost button. So let's start with the Sort operation. So you click the Show Sorting Options button, and what this does is it allows you to sort the table. So for example, let's say that I would like to sort this table by product name in reverse alphabetical order. So here's the product name column. So what I can do is simply select the name field here, it's the product name, and specify that I want that in descending order from the menu, then press the Sort button, and now the product names are listed in descending order, and you can see that there's a little arrow that's been placed next to the name column header indicating a down arrow indicating that the sorting here is now in reverse alphabetical order. Okay, if you wanted to sort on multiple columns, you could simply specify secondary and additional sorting options. In fact, what we can do to demonstrate a multi-sort is we can sort on, let's say, the reorder level and the number in stock. So, for example, let's say that I want to sort ascending in numerically ascending order by reorder level, and then for each particular reorder level, I'd like to have the number in stock in descending order. So, this may or may not be a really useful way to sort the table, but it will illustrate how to do a multi-sort. So let's revise this so that we're going to resort by reorder level in ascending order, and then sort by number in stock in descending order. So two nested sorting operations, firstly by reorder level, and then secondly by number in stock. Press the sort button. And if you look at the table now, so you can see that reorder level, look at the little arrow next to the column header, the reorder level is in numerically increasing order, so from 5 going up to 50. And then within each individual reorder level group, so for example, if we look at the set of records that have reorder level of 10, right, if you look at the number in stock, then you're going to see the number in stock ordered in descending order. Again, indicated by the small downward pointing arrow, and that will be true regardless of the reorder level. So if you look at reorder level 25, for example, you'll see the number in stock going from greatest to least in numerically decreasing order. So that's an example of doing a multiple sort on a table. Okay, let's go ahead and clear the sort. Just press the clear button, and that takes us back to where we were. Let's look at the next operation, which is column selection. And column selection is basically just showing or hiding particular columns, nothing more than that. So for example, let's say that we find this table a little bit too complex, and perhaps we don't really need to see the number in stock and the reorder level at all, and we'd perhaps just like to eliminate these if all we want perhaps is just the name, the description, and the SKU. So we can simply, first of all, press the Show Column Selection Options button. It's the middle button. And then you just choose the columns that you want to see or not see. So in this case, I'm going to deselect the reorder level and deselect the number in stock. If I don't want to see those columns, press Submit. And then the table is regenerated without those columns. At any time, I can add those columns back in simply by, again, selecting those fields, press Submit, and those columns will reappear. If I need to reorder the columns, I can also do that here. So for example, if I want the reorder level to be to the left of the number in stock, simply press the up arrow here next to the reorder level. And you can see that that switches the order of the reorder level field and the number in stock field. Press Submit, and then the order of those fields in the table is also reversed. Okay, the final operation that we can do with the Report Explorer is the filtering operation. And filtering is what you might expect. It's basically allows you to specify a condition that will retain particular records in the table and delete other records that do not match the condition. So let's see how we can use this. Press the Show Filter Options button, the rightmost button there, and you can see that we have this little interface for specifying conditions now that allows us to specify conditions on any of these fields. So let's say, for example, that I only want to look at records, only products that have number in stock less than 50. So what I would do is I would find the number in stock field. It's the bottom one here. And the condition that I want is number in stock is less than 50, and I'm just going to type 50. Number in stock is less than 50, that's the condition. Press the filter button, and you can see the table shrinks because I've eliminated all of the records that don't match the condition, and now I'm left with records only that have number in stock less than 50. And of course we could add additional conditions simply by creating conditions on the other fields as desired. Perhaps I'd like to add another condition. I already have number in stock less than 50, and perhaps I want to see not only number in stock less than 50, but also reorder level less than 20. So I just specify another condition here on the reorder level less than 20. And press filter. And now I've got these two conditions both in effect simultaneously, and I'm looking at number in stock less than 50 and simultaneously reorder level less than 20. And you can see that there's only 5 or so products that actually meet those criteria. If I want to clear the filter, again, you have a clear button. Simply press that button, and the table returns to its previous state. The changes that you make with the Report Explorer tool are not intended to be saved, but are rather intended as temporary changes that you make to the report so that you can export the report in that particular configuration. So after you've made changes to this table and you're satisfied with your changes, typically what you would do is export this report, and that exported version of the report would, of course, retain all of the changes that you have here. If you have ad hoc privileges, which we'll talk about later, the ad hoc tool is the tool that's represented by the little hand with the pencil. If you have privileges for ad hoc, then in fact you can save some of these changes by pressing the Save button in the toolbar. But if you do not have ad hoc privileges, then what you can do is make the changes and then export the report. Of course, we should say that if you do have ad hoc privileges, then you can make much more significant changes simply by using the ad hoc tool. And in that event, there's really no need for you to use the Report Explorer tool. So for most of those people who will use the Report Explorer tool, in general, after you make your changes, what you'll do is export the report so that you can have a version of the report with the changes that you've made. Let's return now to the master detail report. So we'll close the Report Explorer and reopen the master detail report. The next button is the Export button. The Export button allows you to save a copy of the report to your local system. If you press the Export button, you'll get the Export Report dialog box in which you can select a format in which to export the report, and the list of formats is similar to the list that we've seen a couple of times already, PDF, Excel, etc. You select a format, you can specify whether you want a subset of pages or all the pages, and then press the Export button, and the report will be exported to your local system. And so this is a way to save a copy of the report in one of these formats on your local machine, as opposed to saving it on the server, which we'll see later. And so you can choose to save it on your local machine by exporting the report. The next button is the Refresh button. This will refresh the report with new data. So you might be in a situation, if you're dealing with a database that is updated frequently, you could find yourself in a situation where you've been viewing the report for a while, and in the meantime, it's possible that new records may have been added to the database, or old records might have been deleted from the database. And if you want to make sure, therefore, that you're viewing a report that's populated by the most current data, you could press the Refresh button, and that will reload the report, drawing new data from the database. The next button is the Save As button. And this allows you to save a copy of the report back into the repository. This is different than exporting the report that we mentioned a moment ago. Exporting the report saves a copy of the report onto your local system, whereas saving the report saves the report back onto the server, back onto the repository, into the repository, perhaps in a different location, under a different name, etc. So let's take a look at this. Press the Save As button. That opens up the Save As dialog box, and here you can select a repository folder into which to place this copy of the report that you're saving. You can change the name of the report. So for example, I might choose to save this into the tutorial folder, perhaps under the name Master Detail 2. So I'm changing the name of the report. There are a few other options here. These are save options. Save as archived report means that we're going to save this as essentially as a static report. The reason this option is not enabled here is because archiving needs to be turned on by the administrator. So if archiving has been turned on by the administrator, then we would see the option save as archived report, and this would allow you to save the report as a static copy of the report. In other words, a version of the report that is no longer retrieving live data. That is what an archive report is. It's a report that has been saved together, archived together with its data so that the data always remains the same thereafter. So you can save as an archive report. The option save as live report is the default option. Live report is the kind of report that we've been viewing, which is a report that when it loads will draw data from the database to populate the report. That is the notion of a live report in contrast to an archived report. A live report draws live data from the database. The option here, save parameters only, essentially saves an alias of the report with any parameters that you might have entered. This particular report does not use any parameters, but if we had been viewing a report for which we needed to input parameters when the report opened, for example, parameters that restricted the dates to a particular range or restricted other filtering parameters, etc., we could choose to save a copy of the report, but really an alias to the report that just saves those parameters. So then at a later time, we could find that report alias in the repository listing and click on that, and what it would do is load up the report with the parameters that we had previously entered. So that is the notion of save parameters only. You can add a description for the report. And down at the bottom, HTML layout method. These options you almost never need to change, so we won't say much about that. Just leave it as default. And finally, you can choose how permissions should be set for this report, either that they should be inherited from the folder. In other words, we're saving this report right now under the tutorial folders. That means that the report will share the same permissions as the folder. Or there's an option, grant all permissions to owner only. In other words, myself, being the person who's saving this report, only I should have permission to see this report. So once you've made those selections, press OK, and the report is saved in the location that you specify. You can see now that if I look under the tutorial folder in the repository listing, I'll see the master detail 2 report. And it should be identical to the master detail report because I did not make any changes, but that illustrates how you can save a report back into the repository. Again, if you want to save a report locally onto your own system, you would instead use the export feature. The next button is the ad hoc button. The ad hoc button allows you to make rather substantial modifications to a report, and those modifications can include adding elements, removing elements, modifying existing elements such as charts and tables, and so on. So using the ad hoc tool, you can make very sweeping changes to a report, far more extensive than you could make using the Report Explorer tool. So the ad hoc tool is a very powerful end-user tool for modifying and building a report. Now, we're going to return to this button shortly, and we'll move on to the final item in the toolbar, because to further discuss the ad hoc tool, what we're going to demonstrate is how you can actually build a report from scratch and then modify that report using the ad hoc tool. So we'll come back to the ad hoc button in a moment or two, but let's just finish up the toolbar. We have here a control that changes the size, the zoom level of the report. So for example, 150% will blow up the report to a larger size, 85% will take it down to a smaller size, and so on, and 100% is the default. Finally, there's a red X, which is the close button, and this allows you to close the report, which is essentially the same as navigating to a different report in the repository, but you can go ahead and close the report, and you get a small message that says that the report was closed, and of course to reopen the report, just click on the report in the repository listing. So that completes the full complement of toolbar buttons. Now, depending on how the administrator has deployed your reports and configured your system, you may see fewer buttons than we've seen here. So the administrator can choose what buttons are displayed in the report and what buttons are not. And so in particular instances, you may see fewer buttons than we've discussed here. And as I mentioned before, there might be additional buttons such as additional print buttons and so on. Now let's discuss how you can create a report from scratch. In other words, create essentially a completely new report and then continue making modifications to that report using the ad hoc reporting tool. To create a completely new report, what you would do is go to the Design tab in the portal, the main Design tab, and under the Design tab, you'll see an option called Report. It's one of the three buttons here. There's Report, Visual Composer, and Dashboard. Right? So to create a new report, click on the Report button. If you do not see that button there, it means that the administrator has not configured your system to allow you to do this. And if you, after watching the video, if you find that this is something that you would like to do, consult with your administrator about configuring this feature. When you press that report button, what that does is it loads up a set of wizards. You can see that by default, there's a crosstab wizard, a table wizard, a section wizard, and a chart wizard. And these wizards basically allow you to create a new report that features the corresponding component, a crosstab, a table, a section, or a chart. So when you're using these wizards, what you do is you choose the wizard which is most appropriate for the report that you want to design. If you know that your report is going to contain a crosstab, then use the crosstab wizard. Likewise, if you know your report will contain a table, use the table wizard, and so on. Now, of course, most reports contain more than just one element. Most reports might contain a crosstab and a table and perhaps several charts. However, you're not limited to building a report with just one element. What you do is you start off by running through the steps of one of these wizards. You have to choose only one. But then afterwards, once you've created the report using the wizard, you can continue adding other elements using the ad hoc editing tools. So the way you build a report from scratch is you start with the wizard, but that's not the ending point. You can continue doing further modifications. So in this example, let's create a report based on the crosstab wizard. So I'm going to click on the crosstab wizard, and that loads up a multi-step wizard. You can see the steps on the left here that the wizard will guide me through, and the process will essentially allow me to step-by-step build a crosstab. So let's go ahead and get started. From the first step here is select data source. So I'll select the sample order model data source. Again, the set of data sources you see here are the data sources that are installed by default with our default installation. So if you don't see these data sources, it's probably because your administrator has configured the system differently. You can either ask your administrator to install the default data sources, or you can simply run through the example using your own data source, and I think that will probably be simple enough. So choose a data source that is familiar to you, and then follow along with the steps as best you can. So I'll select the order model here and press the Next button at the bottom to move to the second step of the wizard, where I'm asked to select a row header for this crosstab that I'm building. And what we'll select in this case is the salesperson first name field. In our data source, there are 4 different salespeople, and so the first name field gives me the first name of each salesperson. And I want those 4 names to be the row headers of the crosstab, so select that field, then press Next to move to the third step, where I'm asked to select the column headers. So for the column header, I'm going to select product category. So I selected product category. There are 7 different categories in our data set, so I'm going to get 7 column headers corresponding to the 7 categories. You'll note that you can select multiple column headers and multiple row headers. Right? So if, for example, if I wanted to have not only the category as the column header, but let's say also the products within each category, then I could select another field here. I could select the product name field, which would give me the names of the products, and then I would have 2 levels of column headers. But in this example, we're just going to keep it with 1 level of column header, just the product category. Press the next button, and now we're asked to select the summaries. These are the fields that will be aggregated for each value of the row header and column header. In this case, we're just going to select one, and that's going to be the product total. So for each combination of row header and column header, that means each combination of salesperson first name and product category, we're going to sum up all of the totals for that pair of salesperson and category, and that's the value that we want to display, the aggregated totals. You'll note that you can select different aggregation methods, sum, count, average, min, max, etc., but we'll keep it with the default, which just sums up all the totals. Press the next button to move to the 5th step, where we can specify a filtering condition. This is a condition that will be used to restrict the data that's displayed in the crosstab in the way that we specify, and in this example, we'll restrict the data to just a particular year. So I'm going to, from the leftmost menu, find the date field. So in our data source, there's a date field. And the condition that I want to set is order date is in range of this year. So I'll select is in range, and then from the rightmost menu, select this year. So the condition that I'm applying restricts the data to data sales from this year. Order date is in range this year. I press the append button to add that condition, and then I can move to the next step. So press the next button, and the next step is to select a table style. Let's select a blue style. There are many preset styles. They vary in particular ways that are described by the title. So dark header borders, you can click on that and to see a preview of it. So we'll just choose a table style that seems suitable. Perhaps light header borders might work. So select the light header borders table style. And now we've completed all the steps. That is the last of the steps, as you can see. So let's go ahead and press the Finish button. And this generates the report and produces this result. So what you'll note is that there is a crosstab. This is the crosstab that we just created by going through the wizard. Salesperson first name as the row header, product category as the column header, and product total as the aggregate. Now, 2 things will be immediately apparent. The first is that this table does not seem to display any data. And the reason for that is that we're still under the Design tab. And under the Design tab, when you look at a report, by default, you see only metadata. And that's what we're seeing here. We're seeing the metadata, just the description of the fields that will appear in the table. The second thing that you'll note is that there's a few other elements to this report. First of all, there's a big yellow label at the top that describes to you what you're seeing. This is obviously not part of the report. This is simply meant to clarify that when you're looking at this report, you're seeing this in design view, so you're seeing metadata. And if you want to see live data, it says you can click on the live data link that we'll do in just one moment. But the other thing that you'll notice is that there are other elements to this report. For example, there's some text here that says report header and the current time and day, and there's a report footer at the bottom. Those are elements that were added by the designer of the prototype report that is used by the wizard. So when you use one of these wizards, yes, you are creating a report from scratch in the sense that you're building up a crosstab like we've done here, or a chart, or a section, or a table, depending on the wizard. You are building up that element from scratch, but the wizard relies on a predefined prototype report to provide the other elements of the report, for example, margins and other components, and that's what we're seeing here. These elements are part of the prototype report on which the wizard is based. So, if the prototype report, the elements of the prototype that you're seeing, you don't find appealing to you, you have 2 options. First of all, you can change them once we're done with the wizard, and once we start using the ad hoc editing tool, you'll see that we can change any of these components as we desire. And your other option is to ask the administrator to create for you a more suitable prototype report. So, for example, if you want the prototype report to contain a particular header, particular information, particular, let's say, headings, and other contents, perhaps a logo or something like that, that is certainly something the administrator can do, can create for you a prototype report that will be more suitable to your own needs. Okay, having said all that, let's switch this to live data mode so that we can see the data in the table. You press the live data button, and the report will now load, pulling data from the database to populate the crosstab table. And you can see the table is what we expect. We have the row header are the 4 different salespeople, salesperson first name. The column headers are the 7 categories that we have in the data set. And at each combination of row header and column header, we have the aggregated total for that pair. Okay, so now we've completed the wizard and we've got this report, which obviously we still need to do some work on to get into a finished state. So let's go ahead and save what we've done. Press the Save button in the toolbar. And let's give this a name, and we'll call this, we'll just call this Ad Hoc Report. You can save it in whichever folder you want. To save it at the root level, which I'll do here, just keep the folder set to the /. That's the root level, which means it will appear at the root level with these other reports. We'll save this as a live report. If you want, you can give a description, but I'll ignore that for now. And the main thing is just give it a name and then press OK. And this report is now saved into the repository, and you can see that it appears at the root level with these other reports. Now, we're still under the Design tab, which means that whenever we load a report under the Design tab, we're going to see that report with metadata rather than live data. So at this point, let's return to the Report tab and now open this report in the Report tab. So there it is. Again, I'm under the Report tab now. And of course, under the Report tab, when you click on a report, you see the report with the data. So click on the Ad Hoc report, the report that we just created using the wizard, and this is what we have so far. Now, obviously, this is not a completed report because we have some placeholder text and other things that we want to change. So what we'll now illustrate is how you can use the Ad Hoc tool, which is this button in the toolbar, use the Ad Hoc tool to make further modifications to this report. So let's go ahead and make some modifications to this report using the Ad Hoc editing tool. Click the Ad Hoc button in the toolbar. And that will switch the report to ad hoc mode. You'll notice that the toolbar has changed. This is not the standard toolbar. If you want to go back to the standard toolbar and leave ad hoc editing mode, then click on the green arrow. It's the leftmost button that says Show Default Toolbar. Press that, and that returns you to the regular toolbar. But again, let's return to ad hoc editing mode. So press the ad hoc button, and again, the toolbar changes. And now we can go ahead and make modifications to this report. Now, there are a couple of approaches to doing this. The more general approach is to modify an element. Simply click on the element in the report, and you'll then see a panel appear on the left side. So if you click on any element in the report, whether it's the table or a text element such as this one that says crosstab header or this one that says report header, click on the element, a panel will open on the left, and when you move the mouse over the panel will expand to show you properties that you can set for that element. And there are the properties are grouped into different panels. So, for example, this is the general properties, but you'll notice there's another button called highlight. If I click that button, then that will open up the highlight panel, which allows me to set highlight properties for the component that I've selected. So this is the most general way to make modifications to a report using the ad hoc tool. Again, what you do is you click on the element and then move the mouse over the panel to change properties. The other approach is to right-click on an element, and you'll find that if you right-click on elements in the report, you'll get a little menu, and this will also allow you to make changes, including moving components and inserting and appending, etc. If you select, for example, properties or highlight, the effect of that from the right-click menu will be simply to open up the panel that we saw before. So these are two approaches, but really they're one. They're both ways of accessing the properties panels. So now let's go ahead and make some changes. I want to change the report header to say sales by category report. So I'll left click, regular click on the report header text, move the mouse over the panel on the left, and then I can change the text here and down at the bottom to say sales by category report. Okay, so I've changed the text, then press OK. OK will apply the change and close the panel. Apply will only apply the change, but will not close the panel. If you're using a small screen, then generally you'll press OK because otherwise it's difficult to see the change applied. So press the OK button. The report reloads with the change that we've made to the title. Okay, let's go ahead and make some further changes. This text here, the crosstab header, I'd like to delete entirely. So for this, we don't need the panel on the left. Simply right-click on that text element and select Delete. And that text element is gone. Let's center the crosstab table. So click on the crosstab table to open the panel on the left, and let's find an option that will allow us to center the table. Click on the Properties button in the left panel, and that opens the Properties panel, and in there you can see that there's an alignment feature. So click the Center option for the alignment, press OK, and that will center align the crosstab table. Okay, let's make a couple of more small changes. Let's remove this separator line under the Sales by Category report title. So simply, same way that we remove the other text element, simply right-click on that separator line and select Delete, and that line is removed. And for the separator line at the bottom, you'll note that there's a report footer at the bottom. Let's make this into a double line. So click once on the separator line at the bottom, and then go to the panel on the left. You'll notice that there are not many properties for a separator line other than the line style. So let's just change this to a double line style, and then press OK. Next, let's make a change to the crosstab itself. What I'd like to do is add a grand total column here. So for each salesperson, I'd like to see their total across all of the 7 categories. And the procedure is the same. Click on the crosstab, and then we just need to find the panel on the left that will allow us to make that kind of change. In this case, the panel that we want is the Options panel. So click on the Options button. That opens the Options panel. And you can see there that there's a few different options. Among them, there's an option to show column grand total. That sounds like what we want. So select Show Column Grand Total, press OK. And you can see now that we get a grand total that gives us the total for each salesperson across all of the categories. Next, let's add a chart above the crosstab. So this is our, so far we've looked at deleting elements, but we have not yet added any elements. So this is our first example of adding a new component into a report using the ad hoc tools. So how would we add a chart above the crosstab? Well, what we do is we right-click on the crosstab and then select Insert. Insert means insert above. If you want to insert below, then you would select Append, but in this case we want the chart above, so select Insert, then select Chart. And that gives us a blank chart above the crosstab. So obviously this chart is not very interesting as things stand now, so let's go ahead and add some data to this chart. Click on the chart, and again you'll see in the left panel will open, and by default, when you move the mouse over the left panel, it will prompt you to select a data source for the chart. So let's again select our order model. So expand the data source node and find the order model as the data source and press OK. And what we're going to do is use this chart editor to configure the chart. So first of all, let's add order date on the x-axis. So I'm going to find the order date field, place that on the x-axis, and we want the order date to be grouped by month. So on the x-axis of the chart, we'd like to see months. To make sure that that's the case, I can press the Edit Dimension button here and verify that the level is set to month. I see that it is not. It's currently set to year. So I'm going to change the grouping level to month. Press the little green Apply button, and now we've got the order date field on the x-axis of the chart grouped by month. Now let's also distinguish the data, or group the data according to the product category, and I want to use color to do that. So in the data that appear on the chart, I want the categories to be color-coded. To do that, I'm going to find the product category field and drag the product category field to the color area under the visual heading. So this is the visual panel. Drag the product category field into the color area. That means that color will be used to distinguish the different product categories. On the y-axis, I'm going to place the product total. So ultimately, this will be a chart that displays product total versus month, broken out also by product category. So find the product total field and drag that field onto the y-axis. Okay, the next thing we need to do, and now that we've got the essentials set up, we have the order date on the x-axis, product total on the y-axis, and we're breaking out the categories by color. We need to choose the particular chart style. In this case, we're going to use a stack area chart. So press the Select Chart Style button over here, and that allows us to choose the particular type of chart. So we'll choose an area chart, that's the chart at the top right corner, and then select the stack option, and that will give us a stack area chart. Press the Apply button. And now that we've got the chart all set up, let's add the same filtering condition that we had already added to the crosstab. Remember that we filtered the crosstab table to display only data from the current year, and since the chart and the crosstab are intended to be displaying the same data, just in different forms, we should make sure that we apply the same condition to the chart as well. So now that we've got the chart laid out, let's go to the Filter button. Again, in this left panel, I can simply switch the panel shown here by pressing the Filter button, and that opens up the Filter panel, and I can set a filtering condition here, similar to what we did for the crosstab, and state that the order date is in range this year. Order date is in range this year. Append that condition. Okay, so I've got my filtering condition, and I'm just going to double check that the data binding remains in effect. And there it is. So we're all done with the chart. Press the OK button, and the chart will now be generated with the specifications that we entered. And so there it is. It's a stack bar chart. It has months on the x-axis because we grouped the date field by month, and we specified that we wanted only months from the current year. Which, as I'm creating this video, is the year 2013. So months from the current year. And on the y-axis, we've got the product total, and we've broken out the data by color so that we can look at the total for each individual product category. Now that we've seen how we can add a chart and configure a chart, select the data set to display on the chart, and so on, let's take a look at some of the more minor features of a chart that we can change. For example, changing the labeling, the formatting on the labels, the titles on the axes, if we need to move the legend, how to do that, and so on. So to do this, we want to open up the Chart Properties dialog box, and as I mentioned before, there's two ways to do that. You can click on the chart as we've been doing, and then just move the mouse over the left panel to expand it and click on the Properties button, and that opens the Properties dialog box for the chart. So that is one method. The other method, as soon as the report reloads, is to simply right-click on the chart and then select Properties from the context menu, and that is simply a different approach to achieve the same end, which is opening up the Properties panel. You can see the display here is slightly different, but it's the same dialog box. Okay, so what you can do here is change properties of the chart, properties that are not related to the data per se, but are simply related to the way that the chart is displayed. For example, if you need to move the legend, you can click and drag on the legend and put it down at the bottom, for example, or on the left side, or you can put it anywhere on the chart itself. You can place the legend at some arbitrary location on the chart. For this example, we'll just keep it in its original location on the right side. You can also change the labeling. So for example, if you needed to change the way that the labels are displayed here, you can right-click on the labels, and there's a property here, Axis Properties. So if you select that, this allows you to change various properties of the labeling, the orientation, alignment, the font, and the format. The format is the way that the values are actually displayed. So, for example, if you wanted to display these rather than as the raw value, if you wanted to display them in terms of thousands, you could select a number format, for example, and then choose a format such as this one here, hash, comma, hash, 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 k. This means represent the number with a comma every 3 places and in terms of thousands. That's what the K symbol means. For more information about setting these kinds of number formats, please consult the documentation. I just want to illustrate here how you would do it. So we can select a format and press OK, and that will change the formatting on the axis. And likewise for the date field, if you needed to change the dates to, for example, display the year for every place on the x-axis, you could make that kind of change. Let's in fact go ahead and just illustrate that. So right-click on the x-axis labels, select Axis Properties, and here we can select a date format. And for example, we might want to display the 3-letter month, and I'm just typing capital M, capital M, capital M, and then the 4-digit year, lowercase y, 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 y. And again, this method of formatting is explained in the documentation, but hopefully it's somewhat intuitive that you can construct these dates by using special symbols such as capital M for month, lowercase y for year, and so on. And press OK, and then the dates will be displayed in that particular format. Okay, well, in this particular example, I don't really need either of those formatting changes. I think it was fine as it was before. So let's just go ahead and set those back as they were. And I'm just going to, for the format, change the value to none, meaning that it should just use the default format. And for the y-axis, that default format just gives us the full number. And for the x-axis, if I set it back to the none format, that just gives us the formatting the way that we had it before, where the year is given only for the January group, and then each of the other date groups, it simply gives us the month. Let's go ahead and change the titles, which was actually our goal here, simply to change the titles. So I want to change the y-axis title. To do that, right-click on the title, select Title Properties, and we'll just change this to say Total Sales. And same thing for the x-axis, right-click on the x-axis, select Title Properties, and that one we can simply change to say Month. And you'll notice that there are other properties we can set here, such as font and alignment and so on, but all we want to do right now is just change the title text itself. Okay, let's take a look at some other properties that we can set while we're in this dialog box. If you right-click on the chart area, you'll notice that there's a plot property option. If you select that, you'll see a number of properties that relate to the plot region, such as X grid and Y grid. This allows you to add grid lines on the chart. Quadrant grid and diagonal line allow you to add basically dividing lines for the chart. Diagonal line is a line that runs diagonally across the chart. Trend line allows you to apply curve fits, and you can specify the line style. So these are some other options that you can set for a chart. And then there are some additional options. Alpha is transparency. Show values will display the values of the data on the chart. Keep element and plot is basically rescales the chart to make sure that the largest elements and the smallest elements are always visible. And then there are some other special case options when you're dealing with a time series, and that time series has gaps. For example, if you're, as we have here, if you have a date field on the x-axis and there are some dates that do not have any data, you can choose whether those values should be filled with null or with 0. And then additionally, you can specify X and Y banding. This places bands, kind of alternating colored bands on the chart. So you can experiment with these options at your leisure. For now, we'll cancel that. And let's take a look at the, there's also a highlight option if you need to highlight data on a chart. Highlight allows you to set a condition for which some format should be applied to the data. For example, if the value on a chart is greater than a certain amount or less than a certain amount, you can apply some formatting, in this case just a color to it. Now what I wanted to look at additionally here is the chart property dialog box. So again, right-click on the chart and select chart property. And over here you can specify a custom tooltip. Press the Customize button, and this allows you to create your own tooltip. The tooltip is displayed when a user hovers the mouse over the chart, and you can construct your own custom tooltip by using special codes over here. So for example, we might want the tooltip to say something like total for, and then insert the month, which is given to us by a 0 in curly braces, total for the month, in and then insert the category. So this would read something like total for July in personal. Personal is one of the categories. The 2 in curly braces gives me the category, and then a colon, and then I'll, of course, want to insert the actual total, which is given to me by a 1 in curly braces. So you can use these special codes, these symbols in curly braces, to insert the actual values. So this tooltip will now read total for January in hardware, and then the amount. Okay, so that's how you can set a custom tooltip. The other thing that you can do here, other than setting just some basic effects, is to set up target lines. A target line is basically a line that runs vertically or horizontally on the chart, specifying a particular value. And that value could be some arbitrary important value. If there's some threshold value that is of significance, you can put a line, a labeled line at that threshold. Or the line could demarcate some data-related values, such as the minimum, the maximum, the average, standard deviation, and so on. And you can do more than placing just a single line. You can also place multiple lines to define a band, or multiple statistical lines, for example, percentiles, quartiles, and so on. So let's do one example of this. We'll place a band on the chart. The other varieties of target lines I'll just point out to you. So to add a target line, press the Add button, and you can see the choices are available up here at the top. A target line is basically just a single line, and you specify the field on which the line should be placed. Here we have available either the product total or the order date. We can put a target line demarcating total values or date values. And then you would specify the particular value. You could enter an arbitrary value, or you can select, for example, the average, the minimum, the maximum, and so on as the location at which to place the line. Specify a label, line style, fill above, and fill below. So this is the basic procedure. I'm going to illustrate this with the band option, which is just a slightly more involved version of what you see here, because it allows you to place 2 target lines. So let's give this a try. For the field, we'll select the total. We want to place the target band, or the pair of target lines on the total field, the y-axis. And we'll have the band run from the minimum value to the maximum value. So for the from value, select minimum, and the label will be here target value. You have a few choices. Target value is the actual value of the minimum in this case. Target formula would simply be min. Field name would be product.total. So you can choose to use any of these as the label, and in fact you can also set your own custom label. If you press the edit button here, you can construct your own custom label similar to what we just illustrated for the custom tooltip. Basically, you can enter any text in here and then use these special codes in curly braces to add in the values. In this case, we'll leave this as is, as the default, which just places the target value on the line. The to value in this case will be the maximum, so we want a band that runs from the minimum to the maximum. The line style we can set to something thicker and bluer, so a blue thick line. The fill band is the region, in this case, between the minimum and the maximum. More generally, the band between the from and the to value. And fill above is the fill placed above the maximum in this case, and fill below is the fill placed below the minimum in this case. So now we specified the band fully. You can press OK. Press OK again. And there's the band illustrated here. So you can see that there's a band at the maximum. And there's a band at the minimum. And let's go ahead then, once we've placed the bands, press OK. And there's our chart. And you can see that it does have the target bands that we specified at the maximum, at the minimum, labeled with the corresponding values. And you can see that the other changes that we made are also present. The total sales title that we changed, the month title that we changed. And if we move the mouse over any of the data points, let's see if I can find a data point here, you'll notice that the, let me pick a different one. If I can get on it right on the data point, you'll notice that the tooltip is what we specified. It says total for the date and in the category that we're looking at, and then the value. Now, obviously, the date formatting is not ideal here. I'll illustrate in a second how we can change the formatting on the date and how we can do the same formatting change also for the values on the target line. Let's go ahead and save our work at this point. You can go to the toolbar at the top and press the Save button, and that will save the changes that we made in the report that we created, the ad hoc report. If you wanted to save a different version, then you could, of course, press the Save As button, and that would allow you to specify a different name, different location, and you could save a copy. But I have just saved the changes in the same ad hoc report that we had already created. Now, as I mentioned before, some of the formatting is not optimal. For example, the tooltip that we have here has a strange formatting for the date, which would probably be better stated as just the month. So it should just say, for example, total for June in personal and then the value. And the formatting also for the target band labels are not ideal. These are dollar amounts, and yet they're not shown with the dollar symbol. So let's see how we can make those modifications to the formats. And it turns out that the approach is the same in both cases. So let's do the tooltip first. Right-click on the chart, select Properties. That opens up the Properties panel. And then right-click on the chart here and select Chart Property. And that opens the chart property dialog box. This is where we customized the tooltip originally. So press the Customize button, and there's our custom tooltip. And what we need to do here is simply specify a format for the representation of the date, which is given to us by the 0 in curly braces. So to specify a date format, what we do is we add a second argument here. So following the 0, add a comma, and then the word date, indicating that this should be formatted as a date, and then the desired date format. And the date formats are those formats that we saw briefly earlier, for example, capital M, capital M, capital M to give a 3-letter month, and YYYY to give a 4-digit year, and all of the other special symbols that you can use to construct dates. In this case, since I just want the 3-letter month, I'm going to simply type the 3 capital M's to give me the 3-letter abbreviation of the month. And so this specification, by instructing the tooltip that this is to be formatted as a date with the format that I've specified, the 3 capital M's, 3-letter month, that will represent the value then as in that format. We can do a similar thing for the dollar amount also, which is given to us by the 1 in curly braces. That's the sum product total. If I want to represent this as a currency, then what I can do is specify a number format here. So following the 1 in curly braces, add the keyword number, indicating that this should be formatted as a number, and then specify the particular format. And again, this uses a set of special codes to represent numbers. And again, you can find more details about this in the documentation, but in this case, I'm going to put a $, and then hash, comma, hash, hash, 0.00. And this is a standard number format for representing a currency. It's a $. I want a comma every 3 digits, and then I want 2 decimal places to the right of the decimal point. So that's my adapted format for the tooltip. I'll press OK, and press OK again, and then press OK here. And now let's check out the tooltip. And if you look at the tooltip now, it says, I'm pointing at the month of June, it says total for June in personal, and then the dollar amount in the format that I specified. And I could check this for any of the other data points as well, if I can find the right place to point. Total for April in hardware is that amount, 117,000, and likewise any other particular point that I hover over, total for February, and Office Tools, 15,000, etc. So that's how I can customize the tooltip and customize the formatting of the values. Let's do the same thing for the target lines. Again, we have a problem with the formatting here. These should be dollar amounts. So let's return to the properties, right-click the chart, select properties, then right-click on this diagram in the properties dialog box and select chart property. And I want to return to the target line definition. You'll notice that if I want to, I can add additional target lines. You're not restricted to adding just a single target line or single target band. But in this case, I want to edit an existing target line. So select the one that we created before, press edit. And I want to create a custom tooltip. A custom label. So I have here the from label that labels the minimum line. I have here the to label that labels the maximum line. These are the 2 lines that define the lower and upper boundaries of the band. And rather than simply using the target value, which just gives me a simple number, I'm going to customize this label, press the edit button. And all I really need to do here is just add formatting. You'll notice that I have the 0 in curly braces already, which gives me the target value. And so I'm just going to apply the same number format that we did previously for the tooltip by entering the word number, the keyword number, following the 0 and a comma, and then the particular number format, which is going to be, again, a $, hash, comma, hash, hash, 0.00. It's the same format that we used for the tooltip. And in fact, I can copy that. Just going to copy that to the clipboard to save myself some typing for the next one. Press the apply button. So there's my custom label. And I'm going to do the same thing for the to label. Just replace that by what I entered before. Again, just setting the format now for the maximum. The to label is the maximum value, specifying that this should be formatted as a number with this particular layout. Press apply. And now we're done here. You can press OK. Press OK again. And you can see that the formatting shows up even in this properties dialog box, but let's press OK to go back to the report. And we should then see the formatting in place on the target line, the target band lines as well. Let's go ahead and save our work by pressing the Save button again. And now we've completed this report that we created from scratch, from a basic prototype report using a wizard, and by making subsequent modifications using the ad hoc tool. We added a chart, we added formatting, we did alignment, we added and removed various components, and so on. So this little demonstration has shown you how you can create your own report from scratch using a wizard and then continue to make further modifications. That brings us to the end of this video, over the course of which we've looked at the various features available in the report toolbar and how you can create your own report from scratch. Thanks for listening.